So I'm in San Jose, and it's been a goal for a long time to go drive back through my old neighborhood where we grew up before we turned 9. When I turned 9 years old, we moved to the farm where I'm living again now with my family. But all of Ocean's memories and maybe some of Bambi's, but I think just all of Ocean's are at that house and like in that neighborhood. And so we've been wanting to go walk around. It's kind of like playing hide and seek and trying to like find lost memories, basically. A few scenes have been coming up in like dreams and self-hypnosis sessions and stuff, and we just want to go exploring. And so I can feel the dissociation. I've been able to ever since we got the idea and decided to follow through, and I can tell Ocean's around. She's mostly body sensations and like kind of feeling a little bit like kiting, and so I can tell that she's nearby when that's happening. And so we're gonna go drive back through that neighborhood and see what happens. The main challenge in this little adventure is going to be allowing Ocean's memories to surface without losing the ability to stay grounded in my adult self. And so when a different part is triggered, these frontal lobes kind of go offline, as Janina Fisher describes it in her book, and the goal is to get them back up. But in getting them back up, sometimes we suppress the trauma again, and then we just end up back where we started. So the goal is to allow the trauma and have dual awareness, observing that while staying within present reality and sustaining access to the going on with normal life self. We're 1 mile away, and we've had to use a lot of our coping tools, including smells and our squeeze toys and coping playlist, and the sound keeps changing. The perception of light, like the brightness of light, keeps changing. My body keeps being flooded with different types of sensations as different parts become present, and then other parts become more dominantly present while those previous parts are still present. So it's like everyone's here and not sure what to think and all on guard and prepared for the worst physically, but like mentally we're working hard to stay very calm and stuff, and like deep breathe and try to calm the body as much as possible. We keep dissociating though, and what I'm gonna do is try to in my head narrate this as we're going to see where Ocean grew up. Because if I go in and I say this is where I grew up, it worsens the dissociation. And so I have to use the unblending here. And to do that, I have to talk about all of this in like third person, like it's happening to someone, it happened to someone else, because it basically did, within the way my brain is structured and remembers it. And so, yeah, it's really challenging. Half a mile away. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Full body trembling, my vision feels like spotty, my heart's racing, it's like tension in my chest, and my back has gone totally numb. So we're here, and this is the house. So we're gonna go walk around the neighborhood a little bit and see what happens. Butterfly. That's the neighborhood I would play with all my friends. Outdoors mornings. I totally remembered this back corner being a lot bigger. We would play hide and seek, and I remember it being like this big open place with like a bunch of trees, and we would hide, and it's just this. I'm very confused about my memories. I remember running down here, and then the part after that's really different. This garage is where we remember Jamie's dad giving us a banana seat bike when they moved, and that like the front door would be like on the other side. I guess where I was would have been that front door. So that's some of Ocean's memories. I don't know how it all ties together, but we specifically remember that garage and then moving where our house is up there. I specifically remember these hills and like rolling down them. Like they're so tiny, but I remember them being like these big things that I would be like rolling down and like, oh, it's so trippy. I remember being so little, and it makes being in this adult body very, very, very strange. It doesn't make any sense. Huh. Yeah? The houses used to be brew. Now they're all tan colored. Yeah. It's like a private community and we feel bad wandering. I don't want people to worry that some strange person is just wandering. Look at trees. Oh, lovely birds. Which way should we go? What would I say? Yeah, we had so many neighbor friends. We knew so many people in all the houses. We had friends in all the different places, and we would ride our scooter around and say hello to all of them. The first short story I ever wrote was inspired here. I was right there, right there, riding my red scooter, and I came up with an idea for a short story and stuff. I'd have to use my spelling words in sentences. And instead of just making random sentences, I would try to make them all coherent. And it ended up being my short spelling story. And that was like a series. And so that inspired like a short story series called the K&K Adventure Series. And The Mystery of the Vanishing Red Scooter was the first one, and it was all about the vanishing scooter, and it all took place right here. And I wrote that story, I think like right after we moved, or like maybe it was like right before we moved kind of time, because I thought it was in fourth grade, but I moved here then in third grade. Anyway, it's all hazy, but I'm trying to pinpoint things better. Yeah, I can definitely tell Ocean's here. Bambi too, but definitely more Ocean. Definitely. Like I can feel it in the eyes and the jaw and kind of just the general like size and confidence of the body as a whole, and kind of our confidence and sense of sureness with like even what we're doing, just taking a walk around a neighborhood. Like that's all really, really shaky and hazy and hesitant and just not very, whew, very jumpy, not very clear. That was a leaf. Just a little leaf. Yeah. We learned to swim here with our neighbor friends, and she'd like throw a quarter in the pool and be like, if you can get it, you can keep it. And it was motivation. And this is the pool I like started to learn how to swim. And those are all Ocean's memories, not mine. It's so weird. This house in particular, I remember distorted. I thought it was like more on the corner, like where the bushes are. I felt like that was where the front door was, but it's like more over. But circling back around, I realized it's at the end of the, like if you approach it from the pool direction, it's a little bit more like I remember it. And so maybe I just remember approaching it from that direction. But I kept having this reoccurrent nightmare when I was a child, and as I got like more into, like closer to my DID diagnosis, it was like that memory seemed more and more like it could be, or that memory of a dream seemed like, well, it could be a memory of a memory. Like maybe even as a kid I was having like flashbacks from something, and so I don't know the specifics. I just know the way it makes me feel. And it makes sense because trauma memories, particularly anything from childhood, it's all going to be implicit procedural body memory things. It's all subconscious. You can't just like get there. It's kind of just this feeling. And so I have learned to, beautiful butterfly, I have learned to trust the feelings and trust myself and trust what's happening. Trust the journey and trust my different parts, even if I can't communicate with them directly. Oh, wow. That little tree right there, it looks like so fragile and whatever. I don't even know. It doesn't look like a climbing tree. We used to climb it all the time to the very tip top. I remember it like I'm up in that tree right now. I don't understand when Bambi was created. I really don't. I don't know if the child part of me who kept going on with normal life after the trauma that Ocean coped with was Felicity or Bambi. It doesn't quite make sense. I really want to knock on the door and see if we can go inside, but I feel like it's not worth the stress. I don't know. Maybe I just don't believe in myself enough. I can't tell when it's like, I really just don't want to do it versus like, I really want to do it, I'm just too scared. It's honestly hard to tell. Maybe I will go knock. What would I even say? There's a... little festival, carnival thingy-mahoodle. Littles are all like, ah, yes. Yes. So Ocean's memories were coming up and surfacing, and I was allowing it, and that triggered Xena forward to cope with it, and I tried to unblend, and it was effective, but as soon as I unblended, I got, what was it? I made a mental note of some symptom. It was like this very abrupt, harsh thing. What happened was our eyes started burning. Our eyes literally started burning, like very specifically. Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint what's actually happening and what I'm really experiencing, and then sometimes it's subtle, or you know, like it could be excusable, and maybe just because, like, you know, like if I was in really harsh wind and my eyes started burning, maybe it was because of that or something, you know. But this was very specifically as I unblended from Xena, as she tried to help us cope with Ocean's memories. There was a burning sensation in my eyeballs, vividly, intensely, immensely, extremely, specifically. Later on, when the fight part was triggered, I got like legit nauseous. And so I think each part of the body, each part of consciousness experiences the body differently. And then when the fight parts came out later on from a different trigger, like we were already generally triggered, and so our tolerance for being triggered was like lower or whatever. And so when we had technical difficulties with our crappy phone we really desperately need to replace, grateful for the phone, it's carried us far, but holy crap. Causes so much dissociation, just glitching out on me. I'm trying to process trauma, and it's like, nope, we're just gonna delete all the stuff you just recorded. Anyways, phone was frustrating, and so it triggered fight parts, and that's when I experienced like very specific, intense nausea. And so each part has their own unique experience of being in the body, and it has a direct correlation to where the subconscious is at in regards to processing 20 years of trauma. And when I say 20 years of trauma, it's not that it was like consistent over those 20 years, but when a trauma happens and you're coping with it and stuff's happening that you don't understand, and then more traumas are happening, then it adds up. And a big thing that makes a trauma is not just the event itself, but the lack of support following it. It's a lot of stuff that is all getting processed, and it's all coming up at once. Like, we can't just be like, okay, we're gonna just process this one and keep the rest shoved down until we can handle it. It's an all or nothing thing, and so it's been very overwhelming. And now that we have a handle on it, it's even more overwhelming because my consciousness is like, oh, you got this. You're prepared. You're doing this. You're doing okay. You're succeeding. All things considered, like, you're surviving it. So here, have more memories to process. And so it's a positive sign of progress. But I really thought things were going to get easier. I'm not going to lie. I need to very much readjust my perception of where my life is headed. And just like my own expectations of existing, basically. It's gonna be very different than what I had or have in mind, and so still differentiate all that. I'm always so blended, it's hard to tell what's just me and what's being projected and stuff. And so, burning sensation when unblending from Xena and Ocean, and then Kingsley and Coral stepped up, and that's when the nausea kicked in. So every observation matters. It's easy to get discouraged because there's so much happening every day, and just the thought of, I can't write it all down, what's the point of even trying? It gets tricky. So I'm trying not to let that be the dominant thought, and I'm trying to just make note of anything and everything I can. And that's how things add up and lead to actual discoveries and actual breakthroughs and actual, okay, well, let's connect these dots, and now that we know that, let's use these coping tools and this combination, and suddenly this thing that was completely devastating is, being reduced in its severity of how problematic and painful it is. And so every piece adds up. Every bit of the journey matters in the end. It's all building. It's all part of the healing process. And it's important to remember we're not just healing and getting back somewhere we used to be. We're transforming and moving to a whole new place we've never ever been before. It's easy to get stuck and trying to get back somewhere, because the whole thing with trauma is it's got you stuck somewhere in the past. It's preventing your ability to see your future half the time. And so looking forward with the mindset of, I'm never going to be the same person I was, and that's not a bad thing. I'm growing through it. Grow through what you go through. Post-traumatic growth, And so I'm trying my best to turn my eyes forward, but I keep glancing back. And so, that's part of the process. It's all, things come up so they can be processed. And, looking back and then learning how to look forward again after that is part of the process. But it's challenging not to get frustrated with myself. It keeps feeling like I should be somewhere different, and that's also part of the implicit memories being projected. Just a whole lot of anxieties about, why am I here in this place of experiencing traumas? And so when that gets projected, it makes reality really tricky. And it's oh crap, I'm not supposed to be existing at all. Wait, no, that's just what my brain says because I'm recovering from a bunch of bad things. Okay. I just have to constantly reframe. Just constantly reframe my whole life about everything my body's experiencing, everything my brain is thinking and feeling and telling me and observing and concluding, and all the different memories that are coming up from body sensations to thoughts and feelings to, like little physical sensations combined with little mental glimpses and images, and then like followed with like emotional flashbacks, and like it's a whole parade. It's just like a whole parade in my consciousness. It's like, oh, don't. We all have our things to say and we're not going to be quiet about it. And it's all part of the process, and it has to be okay. And it's really, really challenging and difficult, and it really tests my patience and my ability to stay compassionately curious rather than abruptly judgmental and harshly critical and let's hurry up and heal already. Why are you experiencing all these things still, like again and again? And so just trying to learn how to be patient with myself and trying to see how to transform trauma, how to make the worst moments of my life that I'm forced to relive on a regular basis something good moving forward. It's a tall order, especially when I don't have a therapist or like even like meds. Like having anxiety meds or something would be helpful for like the really bad trauma breaks like I've had this week, where it's just dissociative blackouts and self-harm that I didn't want to do, but it was the best way to cope without even worse harm. And so the dissociative, now my eyes are getting dry. Okay, eyes are getting dry as I get switchy. Very specifically a sensation of feeling dry as I switch, talking about whatever I was talking about. Self-harm. So that's a fight part coming out. This whole process, fight parts come in different, oh yeah, my eyes went dry, very, very specific body sensations. And it's honestly really overwhelming, because when I look back and realize that I've been experiencing all these overwhelming specifics on a regular basis in my whole life, I just never had the lens to understand it or even accurately like perceive it, like even like fully observe the details. It's just really scary what our consciousness can lead to when we don't have power over it. And power comes through awareness. And once we gain, awareness of what's happening, it's awareness of how to like take care of ourselves and manage what's happening. Stress management is a huge example of paying attention to your mental health. And everyone has mental health. You don't have to have a mental illness or disorder to have mental health that should be invested in. And I believe society as a whole would genuinely be better if we did spend more time investing in mental health.